Good evening. In a socially distanced world, Design United is an optimistic digital platform for collaborative design and connection. The aim behind Design United is to create an optimistic space for regional dialogue, connections, collaborations, opportunities for young designers and design practices. A much needed network of support and mentorship during these uncertain times. Welcome to Design United's 18th Design Conversation, a very special conversation in progress with two talented young designers with new practices, architect Naomy Parikh of Doro, Gujarat, and architect Ragul Ravichandran of the Lemonade Factory, Coimbatore, joining us today. In Progress features young designers with new practices with work on the drawing board and often in progress. The in-progress sessions are special as it is about the exploration of design of one project through process. Often, product is given more importance than process. So we hope that these sessions will enable a critical exploration and thinking of project through the design process. Our young designers were fortunate to receive critical mentor feedback from two brilliant mentors who are also exceptional designers from the region, architect Soumitra Ghosh from Matthew Ghosh Associates India and architect Hiranti Velandave from Sri Lanka. Yesterday, in a mentorship session, the mentors offered the new studios constructive criticism for their particular project, but also for their future project, and were also able to talk to them about ways of thinking about practice. So we're extremely grateful to both the mentors who participated in the mentorship session yesterday. I'm Varna Shashidhar, founder principal of a regional landscape practice BSLA based in Bengaluru. I'm supported by ClayWorks spaces in this endeavor and my Design United team. ClayWorks creates flexible co-work spaces that focuses on productivity and sustainability. They have introduced their new work from home complete innovation solution, Spotch. As mentioned, the aim behind Design United is to create an optimistic space for regional dialogue, connections, collaborations, opportunities for young designers and design practices, and a network of support during this uncertain time. Emerging new studios have been selected for their work, and I'm delighted to welcome our presenting designers for the day, Naomy and Ragul. Naomy Parikh is an architect and a graduate from the School of Architecture, CEPS University. She graduated in 2011. After graduation, she interned at Dust Studio and Avartan Pottery Studio based in Oroville. She also pursued pottery from the famed Golden Bridge Pottery Studio, Pondicherry, in 2017. Her interest lies in material inquiry and community engagement. Naomy started her practice, Doro, an interdisciplinary and collaborative practice that consciously involves itself in building crafts and processes with an attempt to involve skill transfer and community involvement. She is also actively involved in ceramics through commission projects, functional wear, and skill sharing. Naomi has been invited to In Progress for her exceptional maturity and sensitivity portrayed in her first independent project. Naomi will be presenting her project Under the Trees, a weekend home in the outskirts of Vadodara, Gujarat. Welcome, Naomi. Our second presenting designer for today is architect Ragul Ravichandran. Ragul is a graduate with a Bachelor's of Architecture from the Care School of Architecture, Trichy. He graduated in 2011. Since his graduation, he has worked with 100 Hands in Bangalore and Opolis in Mumbai. He was also part of the Bangalore workshop in 2015 by Professor B.V. Doshi, architect Richard Lepastier, and architect Peter Suchaberry, conducted by the Vimal Jain Foundation, Bengaluru. Ragul started the lemonade factory in his hometown of Coimbatore a year ago, with user experience being the prime focus. Ragul has been invited to present at In Progress for his neat way of resolving and problem solving exhibited through his In Progress work. Ragul presents his residential project, The Stack. We welcome both Ragul and Naomi to In Progress. We will be starting the presentation with architect Naomi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Varna. Just one second. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Firstly, I'd really like to thank Design United for giving me this opportunity to present my work and to be mentored yesterday by these wonderful architects, architect Soumitra Ghosh and Hirante Vilabande, which was an extremely insightful and encouraging experience. Having done my architectural internship in Doro in the studio Auroville, and later doing my architectural research thesis there, and then studying pottery at the Golden Beach Pottery, when I came back to Ahmedabad, as an extension to all these rich experiences, I started my own practice called Doro. Yeah, to be very honest, it has been a really extremely joyous roller coaster ride ever since. I also jump onto opportunities of commissioned ceramic work time to time and have been associated in academics at the School of Architecture, Ahmedabad, both in architecture and ceramics. Today, I'll be virtually walking through you through my process of building our project called Under the Trees, which is a weekend home in the outskirts of Baroda. Just one second. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, the brief of the project was to develop a site into a space that facilitates engagement with farming and activates outdoor activities amidst the nature. Here, we want to build a very small house so that one person could take care of the farming and stay here in a compact place. And they anticipated a lot of occasional gatherings on the site, but not really being restricted to the house. So here is where the site is on the outskirts of Baroda here. This is where the site is. And like particularly the site is amongst the farmlands in Baroda, which is away from the main settlement. Here is the site. You can see that the dotted line is a site here, which is amongst the farmlands around. And this is where you enter the site into a depression area. So basically, these are images to just have a understanding of the texture of the landscape of the site, which predominantly is covered by neem trees. So yeah, here this shows as you can see, this lower part of the site has a natural depression on site, and which are where predominantly the trees are placed. Yeah, so these basically the undulated landscape of the site is formed due to the flow of water over the years through the site, and which flows eventually into the river Mahisagar. So now I'll quickly run you through the builds on site and how and individually come to them later. So basically that's where you enter the site, and the other way is here. Both these roads are connected by mud pathways from the village and the river side. This is the caretaker's residence, which takes you, like a peep to the gate. Here is the main house, which is accessed from when you climb up here to the steps. This is where you access the main house from. This is an outdoor kitchen here, a small little kund or an amphitheater, I'll call it. A public toilet here, a seating under the tree. Yeah, a lily pond here and a lawn area here. And the organic farming would happen on this part of the site. This entire thing is connected through a mud pathway. So yeah, basically the house and the landscape elements were strategically placed to maintain the natural flow of water, although controlling it from further eroding by plantations and percolation pits. So in terms of landscape, we've planted a lot of flowering plants in this region around the lily pond, which contains basically all of these elements here contain the lawn area into a social space and basically form like a threshold between the organic farming and the residential part. Also, like as you climb up here, we have a thick champa plantation here. Here, the bamboo plantation basically restricts the view to the public toilet block, and bamboo plantation here in the depression basically further like prevents the soil from further eroding down. So coming to the house, it finds its place amongst the dense trees amidst the valley. We came to a linear footprint here on site in order to not disturb the trees and arrive to an extremely compact plan. We first thought of creating parallel walls as a system to keep the existing expanse of the site as open as possible, even from within the house. We modulated the parallel walls to address the program, retaining the transparency through the access. As we enter the house here, as we enter the house here along the dining, the living room on this side, the small kitchenette on this side, a powder room here, a bedroom much secluded with a bath and a toilet attached. And here, so since the house is elevated in the valley, the extended deck on either side is where it immediately connects you to the ground. And the two decks are connected at the veranda here, which basically it opens out into a space which is visually untouched to the entire area of the site. The expanse here, as you say, like this is where you enter, and the expanse here also continues. If you can see this, the skylight here, even to the sky here. So basically, the just one, yeah. So we've used rammed earth walls here for the parallel walls. The extended wall here becomes like contains the deck here and adds a layer of privacy to the bedroom here. Also the brick wall, like these are all the rest of the walls, the black walls that you see here are the brick walls. They not only contain, they double up as functional spaces, like the sit outs are placed here, inbuilt seatings are placed here, and also all the services are concealed under them. And we decided to go with inbuilt seatings to add to the compactness of the plan and ease in the maintenance of the space, because this space is now going to be used across the week. So basically you can see the inbuilt seatings here across the house. Yeah, and this is the bedroom, which is not really connected with any of the deck area, so you can actually not access it from the outside in conditions. Yeah, these diagrams just show the floor cover of the house along with the deck. These finishes are done in the floor finishes are done in the oxide, and outer is a rough coated stone, and these basically show for the proportion of the house. So coming to the construction process on site, I would walk you through the materiality and processes of the house. From the drawing board, when we moved to the site, a lot of decisions came about due to remoteness of the site, accessibility of materials that we were dealing with, processes that were skill intensive, and limited access to electricity. We casted a slab over a composite structure to receive the house above it. The construction process here we taken, as I informed earlier, was rammed earth. So as a thumb rule, we would normally consider by a 7 feet by a 7 feet wall, a thick 9-inch thick wall would be made in a time of daylight by 9 people set, but in a single shuttering. But so here, as you see here, this is the first wall that we made on site. Since you can see that this is how the shuttering sits. So we didn't really get a support for the shuttering to sit properly. So immediately we had to redo all the walls, and we strategized in a way that all the smaller walls, like we made the small walls on the edges much smaller to try and fit everything into the daylight, and so that we don't have to work into the night. So basically, those are just images that are work in progress from the rammed earth walls were going on. And we basically took this opportunity also to do a small skill transfer on site. So we had 4 people who had fairly enough knowledge about rammed earth, and we had the rest of the people working from the village helping us. So the plan was that in the process of 30 days, when we were casting, when we were ramming all the walls, So in that particular time, they would learn and adapt to the techniques and understand the material, and eventually will be able to build by themselves. So it wasn't as smooth as I had initially imagined it, but we managed somehow. Here are a few images from the process of the building. The roof here was the next labor and material intensive challenge. We had sourced reclaimed wood, red pan wood from the shipbreaking yard in Nalang. And since the wood was extremely seasoned and conditioned, it was too hard to detail a typical wooden joinery as we would like it. So we decided to use metal plates as a joinery. And here, as you say, the roof adapts a raftered system. And yeah, so when the wooden planks when the wooden rafters were in place, seeing the canopy above, we didn't really feel like shutting the entire roof, and managed like to do small little carve out some small skylights to retain a glimpse of it. Coming to the inbuilt furniture and finishes, we use oxide finishes here. Here we again took the opportunity towards skill transfer for the locals with help of the artisans from Tamil Nadu. The fine tuning of small little things that came about on site, that you were doing a small little seating, that the floor finish goes towards the seating, and all of these, when we drew these things in plan, it was quite simple and straightforward. But when we came to site, small little fine tuning happened when they told us, no, we cannot manage this in this time in today's day. So little fine tuning of the expansion joints, how the patterns came together, happened directly on site. These are the images of the house, which is still in progress. So coming back to the site, there were spaces on the site where the masons and the people working on site would naturally flock to for tea, rest, and also sometimes use them as tools. So this gave us a push to create something around it for an anticipated social gathering. So you see here is a kund, an open outdoor kitchen, a seating under the tea, the lily pond here. So basically this adds up to the social space here. And this basically contains the lawn space here, and becomes like a small threshold between the farming area and the rest of the site. Basically, this is how like these three elements here that connect, like one could flow into the other and the other flows into the other. And I forgot to mention that the soil that we used for the ram dirt was sourced from this lily pond, which we dug out the mud from here, so that eventually turned into a lily pond. Yeah, so this tree here is the oldest and the largest tree on site, around which we created an otla, as we would call it, which doubles up as a kitchen, like a dining area next to the kitchen structure. Yeah, this is when the process was still going on. Here again, we use oxide finishes for the finishes. And we've frequently had these kids visiting from the village and playing around these spaces. This was an existing depression on site, shaded with a lot of trees around, where most of the afternoon naps on site would took place. So he promptly converted these spaces into a kun or a mini amphitheater for a lot more naps to come. Yeah, again, this we finished with the oxide flooring. So basically, you see the house on this side and the open outdoor kitchen on the other side. So yeah, this is the outdoor. I mean, yeah. So for gathering and collective cooking, we came up with an outdoor kitchen to keep the intimacy of the house. So the first sample wall that you see here marks now as a serving counter for the outdoor kitchen. This is the outdoor toilet block and the store for the farming, which was the testing grounds for both ramdad and the oxide techniques that the skill training happened for. Every part of this was put together by the locals who would come as fresh, like they were not even masons. They were people who would go to this, who would just pick like dry wood from around the site. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Naomi, for a beautiful presentation. We would now like to invite Ragul to present his work. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ragul, we can hear you.
Thanks. Um, Thank you, Design United team and Architect Verna, for inviting us to present our work in this amazing platform. So, we Laminate Factory, we are a team of 3 architects. We believes in materiality playing a major role in which has always given us building values. In turns, playing a key factor for space planning and its efficiency. Today, I'm going to share you a small residential project and it's called Stacks. The given site is in the suburb of Coimbatore and is placed in a residential context with which we had to address the need of residential building to be able to breathe through time. A piece of land with fewer buildings around can always make its way through lighting and ventilation, but it stands through time the same is to be thought of and designed to its functional needs. The size of the plot is 40 feet by 45 feet, and the plot coverage for the building is around 1100 square foot. After various design process that were thought through, they struck an idea how to visualize and think through a site, not just a plane, but as a volume, which means we have to keep the X, Y, and Z, the land, length and breadth, and the empty air above it. This incline that we imagine the height for generating a volume to work with. Trying out various combination and applying functionally with basic design principles of balance and aesthetic appeal, we could manage to place these volumes in an order that fits its functional need parallelly. Keeping in mind a space is a volume with planes on all direction, we needed levels to demarcate its dominance. This further directed us towards a hierarchical system of breaking volumes, a dominant, a subdominant, and subordinate volumetric process. The author Gail Greed Hanna from the Design Principle of Visual Composition by Rowena Reed Costello talks about the dominant, subdominant, and subordinate volumetric process. Was the major inspiration when we started this project. So in a book that we had read through to understand certain combination of volumes with the design principles of balance, both volumetrically and visually. And here you can see these images were a part of design exercise of started off same volumes, but resulted in different volumetric composition. Like Costello, we had to understand how structure could help us have more visual relationship between the volumes. With volumes separated quantifiably into different composition, with the transitional character from one plane to another or one level to another, we arrived at many such combinations. So I have to share a moment from 100 Ants. So whenever architect Bijoy traveled to any of historical places, he makes an amazing series of sketches, which which all the buildings and structures are properly studied in terms of proportion and mathematics, like x by x, 2x by x. So, understanding from the heritage and from the masters really helps us composing these volumes in a proper proportionate way. So once the volumetric composition is fixed, I shall show you how to separate these volumes in a 2D space planning. So after the volumetric separation and in volumes and heights, we needed circulation system to merge with these volumes. Placing stair core in between was solution, but in position was a tricky puzzle, and all could go along with the vastu as well. Here in the plane, the bedroom is in the southwest, is adjacent to the volumetric puncher, and then a drawing area that draws its light from the southeast corner and facing the south transparently. The stairwell, being the tallest volume, needed subtlety from the other masculine ones, and the visual composition was achieved in material being subtle gray and yet being the highest level and the composition volumetrically. Movement planes at various levels had to be integrated such that it remained at ease and not a sudden break in the movement through the volume. The stairwell played a major role and its location was caught right in between the volumes. Here you can see the altering volumes in ground 0 and level 1 and puncher at the center for the courtyard at level 1, and the drawing room beside the courtyard has a small level drop to show the comfort and cozy appeal for the evening. So the next part, once the design part was solved, here comes all the other factors that make sure it get difficult to achieve the desired visual of our design. You know, we call it 3C factors. Basically, it's cost, client, and climate. So we have to keep in mind to use a material which is climate responsive, client satisfactory, and of course, cost effective. There was always a budget playing a key role to any final decision. Here we choose to have an exposed brick structure, giving it a masculine volume emphasize, but the cast part was a constraint as a brick of the exposed brick quality were 25 to 28 rupees per brick. So we altered the material in the 9-inch wall such that the outer wall was exposed and the inner wall was plastered, which required a class A wire cut brick in the outer and the normal brick on the internal surface to achieve that flemish bond. So after addressing all the material part and cost, we still had certain structural complications to achieve our volume composed just the way we intended to. So we had a wonderful structural engineer, Engineer Muruganandam from Tanjavur, who has able to help us put these volumes together with a better understanding of structures. The external brick wall is corbelled out for 1.5 inch and the structural component is covered by cutting out the same brick to make the volume as a monolith. So now let's move on to site execution pictures. This is the initial stage of the residence showing the ground floor wall being built. Southwest drawing room with its opening facing the south in the first floor level. Interestingly, the entry to the site falls in the eastern quadrant facing the south. Having a budget to address and a site you dreamt in a particular way, it seems like we stood by the site wondering what would be its final stage. So as we proceeded with the levels above the construction was clearly defining those rigid volumes we thought of. And the wall puncher was in the rectangle along X and Y, giving the right amount of break on these rigid brick walls. Southwest view of almost completed civil work, white interior were breaking the monotony with this type of material construction. A courtyard is always a break from an enclosed volume, but in this project, we considered it as a volume as well. Look at the height of the first floor level. We wanted to calculate space for it that had the heating and cooling through the day effortlessly for its inhabitant. The southwest bedroom has its privacy yet with the courtyard. Cost efficiency does not necessarily means design compromise, and it definitely doesn't mean structural compromise. Enough design process can help us achieve the same. I clearly saw this when architect Bijoy talks about the project Hope Trichy. In this picture, we can see a small span in a double height being built as a filler slab. Hence, the self weight of concrete is lost, helping the structure to loosen some weight on it, in turn resulting in cost efficiency. We don't have a space inside the plot to give a landscape element. So we thought to give a landscape element in the compound wall itself. To make it get along, we made the structure with the same brick that we used for the volumes. So this is the elevation from the south, which you can see the volumes of brick is being stacked and the subtle gray star core volume on the back. And this is the view from the southeast corner of all the stacked volumes. And we still have some work to complete in the compound wall. So we have come to the end of the presentation. I would like to share a point that any visual an architect see or vision must be executable or executed. So there's a fine line in between design implementation and getting carried away by design. So we was made of through a process, and that process had many hands, and 100 hands was the most significant of all. I thank architect Bijoy and architect Sunita, and of course my school care and architect Vijay Kumar for that. So I thank everybody present here in this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ragul, for interesting work and presentation. I would like to thank both Ragul and Naomi for sharing their wonderful first projects through their process with us. I commend them both for their maturity in design and expression and the intention to obtain feedback. Thank you so much. With this, we open the session to conversation with our presenting designers, moderated by two young architects from the region, joining us from Karachi and Olu. I'm happy to introduce and welcome our moderators for this conversation, Huzaifa Haroon, an architect based in Karachi, Pakistan. Huzaifa graduated from the Indus Valley School of Art and Architecture. Apart from designing locally, she's also worked as a project architect on various projects in India. Our second moderator is Arpa Aishwarya, an architect from Bangladesh who is studying MSc in architecture at the University of Oulu in Finland. Arpa is currently working on her master's thesis, which focuses on exploring participatory methods in urban planning practices. Welcome, Huzaifa and Arpa. With this, we would like to open our session for conversation. Audience, we welcome your questions. We invite you to please type your questions for our architects. Thank you.
Hello, so I will start the question answer session today. And my first question will be to Naomi. As Verna already mentioned that I have a keen interest in participation. So I would really like to thank you for taking this initiative to start taking participatory approaches in your professional practice. And also Ragul for showing us how different studying and professional practice can be, and putting in front of us those issues that we normally don't get taught in our educational academic sessions of how handling clients, site, and the entire work process in the practical field. So Naomi, my first question for you is that your design approach correlates strongly with the features of the site and its challenges. This shows that the site studying is an important part of your design process. How did you exercise your site study for this project, and why do you find it so critical for your design process?
Thank you, Arpa, for your question. I would say that it wasn't extremely structured. The site had a lot to offer in terms of its inherent landscape, and there was no way to ignore that. So basically, we took clues from very organically took clues from what the site had to offer, and took these opportunities to engage with them without overpowering the site. So basically, there's not a very structured way of starting the site, but as I mentioned in the presentation, also like a lot of things like socially also where people were flocking to the site. Apart from the water running through the site of decision of placing where you're placing your building, but apart from those where people are using the site because there's shade or probably something else. So those were small little things that helped us put things together. I wouldn't say there was a very structured method of studying the site, but yeah, these things organically came about. I hope I've answered your question, fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite well put. Thank you, Naomi.
Hello, everyone. I would like to build on to what Arpa just said about building on to and bringing us the realities of how the practical life works. And I would like to thank Naomi and Ragul for showing us wonderful works and telling us their telling us about their practices and projects and the challenges that they face. And I think you guys have done faced the challenges and overcome it very wonderfully. So my first question would be to Naomi, and it's about how Doro has been conceptualized as a studio that works closely with crafts and skilled people. Under the Tree specifically employed people from the village, engaging the community and building this project. What was the process of gathering a team from the village? And can you describe your experience in terms of coordination and process of working with the locals, the opportunities and the setbacks that arose during this process?
Thank you, Huzaifa, for the question. Here, these are people the locals who had helped us during the process. These are people who had actually had come initially to clear the site, like to take all the dry twigs and dry trees off from the site. So we quickly asked them that something like this is going to happen here. Would you be interested in being a part of it? At that time, it was like, okay, I'm going to get my daily wage. Like, I'm going to come and get my pay. So I don't mind. So before we got the shuttering and all that for the rammed earth, we used a makeshift shuttering, and then try like just to little ice break, like just to get them together to try and understand that we're going to work with hands and like try and understand small little things. So when the process actually happened on site, we had these 4 people who had come from Chhattisgarh, and there were the rest from the village here. So rammed earth being a very intensive process where you have to have a lot of coordination. And like if the soiling getting to dry or something, everything has to be taken care of in a very compact manner. But because they were from very culturally very different backgrounds, they didn't really work like a team in the beginning. And we had a lot of issues in the walls because something the soil would dry out too quick sometimes, somebody will not take care of something else. We did have a few issues in the beginning, but then we stopped work for a couple of days and started we did a small co-cooking session, and probably that ended up into the night. They probably got some fish from somewhere for them, and all that small little things happened, and that was the ice-breaking part for the site. So that's when they became a little comfortable doing the processes. So yeah, this is just one of these incidents that have happened. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, now I'm going to move to Ragul. So before getting into your project, I wanted to talk about something different, which is the professional practice. And once we graduate and start working, we often get caught up in the office works. But we have seen that apart from your professional practice, you do take part in workshops, and you have taken participation in the Bangalore workshop in 2015, which was conducted by Vimal Jain Foundation. So I want to know from your perspective that why would you encourage new professionals to seek out for such kind of experience? Hi, Raghu. I think you're on mute. If you can turn your microphone. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Arfa. I would say that was a life-changing experience for me. So learning from the masters, especially architect Peter, architect Richard, and of course, architect Doshi. I still remember the word by architect Richard. He said, the landscape itself without building can be used for a spatial workshop. So as a student at the time, it made us to rethink the whole process of spatial understanding we were taught. So architecture is not just a built form, it is an integrated process. So I would suggest all of us to participate, and we have to see a lot of people and from different culture and experience who have seasoned way of understanding process.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's so true.
Thank you.
Ragul, my question to you would be, seeing that your stacks project is very strong form-wise, so I would like to ask you about the intersecting volumes and spaces that are creating a very special spatial organization of spaces, both in terms of planning and sectional connectivity. So how much would you say it impacts the play of light and wind circulation within the house? And what were the opportunities and limitations that arose from this kind of design?
Yeah. So when we want to compose a volume in terms of visual hierarchy and balance, so we also have to consider the void and open space as a volume itself. So that when we start thinking the open space and void as a volume, then eventually we'll think for the calculated space for it to have the heating and cooling air circulation through the day effectively. So when you keep the voids and built form as a one entity, then you will end up with a proper solution for lighting and ventilation. The limitation in a project where around the composition being interlocked at the central point of it, and hence needed a puncher, that stairwell for the integrated light and air into the built form at tall planes. I think that was the limitation we faced in that project.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we'll move on to some questions that I want to target to both of you together. So what do you feel as new startup of your own practice was the primary challenge for you? Because before you were working as a team player and now you're working on your own. So can you share with us at least one challenge that you have faced while setting up your own practice and what helped you to overcome that challenge? So I think we'll go with Ragul first and then Naomi.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Um, if I take this project as an example, right from the first discussion to the end in the journey of execution, after many discussion with client in terms of budget, maintenance, etc., we have to take decisions that might change from the initial realization, But in this project, the major element is the opening the solid and whites. But the thing is, as long as you don't compromise your core idea, I think we still achieve the great output.
Thank you, Ragul.
Thank you.
Hi. I've actually not worked anywhere before this, and I'd only interned as a part of the architecture school. So this experience, like directly on site, was like the first ever thing I did. Even like not as a team player, but it was the first of everything. And graduating from school and then going for pottery school, it was like everything was new. And putting each step was like, okay, this, like a lot of self-doubt was there in the beginning. And then as things came about, definitely everything went smooth. And then you look back at it, okay, that also happened with me. So yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, that was how it was. But now I think it has been a constant roller coaster, but I feel it was very joyous at the same time. Yeah.
Thank you, Ragul and Naomi. I think each of your experience was so different, and the newcomers will also have their own experience, but it's sometimes nice to know that, you're not alone. Like other people are also facing the similar challenges. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
Speaking of compromises, my question for you guys is, both Lemonade Factory and Doro are based on strong principles of experiential architecture, which is often kind of a struggle when it comes to us young architects, where context, spatial planning, and material experimentation play a key role in developing a space. My question to you both is, how do you deal with clients that don't necessarily understand the importance of the process that goes in creating spaces that are experientially strong? Do you only work with clients that consider the process important, or do you manage to find a balance or compromise in terms of your own principles? Considering as a young architect, we're often told that the client is God, and in earlier stages, compromise is a must. What are your comments on this?
Should I go, Naomi?
Yeah.
For example, I'll take this project as an example. The one thing we have to consider with a client is like we have to work with all the clients. So there is no exception, because if you select a client that we wanted to do, it's not going to happen. So I think the best way is to keep your core idea. So you should not compromise your core idea, and you have to communicate more in terms of if now like we are very upgraded with the softwares and views, so we can easily convince with the 3D and the model that we make in our studio. So I think the more communication with the client, and if we educate them properly, I think everyone can easily convince the client. Thank you.
To be very honest, I've been very thankful to have wonderful people that I've worked with, and they have been really part of, like, very involved in the process. And I do think a lot of things, like particularly for this project, the client had a few things in his head that I would want things like this, and that's why it actually came up like this. Also, I'm really thankful that it was a very constructive sort of back and forth with them. That, why not this? Probably not this. Like I really feel it was a very enriching experience for me myself. And they were quite open to discussion. I'm sure there will be people that would probably not align with your own thoughts probably, but I think that we would find a balance if we can actually go around the bush and tell why it's going the way you're thinking. And I think you can find a balance. And I don't necessarily believe in the whole idea of probably educating a client, because they know what they want. So sometimes they're a little sensitized people, maybe, yes, but yeah, that's how I would see it, maybe till now. I don't know what holds for the future, but yeah.
No, I agree. Communication is key in making our ideas follow through, and especially on making the client understand where they're often reluctant to trust us young architects in the beginning. But I guess with, like Ragul also, Ragul also pointed out, with clear visualizations and the software advancements that we have right now, it becomes easier convincing the client and our own ideas. And like you also said, coordinating and educating the client in what we want and why we want. At the end of the day, it is for the client and the client benefits from it. So I guess that's the key to getting our ideas forward.
Okay, so we're going to take one last set of questions from our two presentees today. So Naomi, I'm back to you again. As we have seen in your project, when you have created the residence, you have created the mass under the shadow of trees where the trees were densely put. But then again, you also have created a very significant roof on top of your residential mass. So we want to know a bit more about the idea behind the roof, because we have seen you have taught a lot in your work process regarding the roof when it comes to its material, its functionality with the light and the wind. If you could elaborate a little more for us.
Yeah, sure. So basically the pitch roof, because the whole structure was elevated and was under the trees, we wanted to retain the sense of a canopy under the canopy. So that's why the timber roof came about. So basically like a very light structure over, definitely like visually, it is a little overpowering, but it just sits very sensitized towards on the side, and somehow elevating it a little up also created like in an otherwise compact plan that it exists a linear structure. It also created a lot of volume in the space and added to a lot of expanse visually to the outside as well. So yeah, that's about the spatial sort of a consideration for the roof.
Yes, I do agree that the height of the roof kind of created very nice lofty interior spaces for the users. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you.
My final question for Naomi would be that seeing the process and the materiality and its usage that you've done when it comes to rammed earth, and the source was the lily pond, the site itself, and similarly the roof has been made from reclaimed and recycled wood from multiple sources. So your concept of materiality is very strong, and we can see that in this project, and it shows great depth and insight about the importance of material experimentation. So has your added knowledge and background in ceramics played a role in material exploration, and how has it impacted your material choices and implementation in architecture, and vice versa?
Thank you, Jose, for the question. I wouldn't very starkly put a relation to what I've learned in ceramics into architecture very consciously per se. But if you say subconsciously, I'm sure things do seep in, like with understanding of the material, how it dries up, how much you slow dry it, how much cover do you need. Those sort of little processes towards the detail, towards how smooth the surface, when you're going to use the place, how smooth things should be. All of those definitely the little sensitive things, it did come across when I was doing this. I think I became a lot more sensitive towards the material when we were doing. In the beginning, when we were doing the rammed walls, we did have issues when things like the first wall didn't come out as we thought. Little things were withering. So like quickly coming up to, okay, maybe it was a little more dry, a little more, we could have made a little more, added a little more water. I'm sure this somebody who done rammed before could have understood. This for the first time I was doing it. So my little background from ceramics definitely helped me understand that maybe, this is where I could probably make a little tweak and try that. And I think, that's about more of it. Yeah. And also to do with basic textures and understanding of a lot more materials, maybe, yes.
Right. I think if not directly related, indirectly and subconsciously, it has surely helped you in the process of designing and working on site on your projects. So that's great to see.
Okay, so moving on to Ragul. So during our academic life, we do drawings, we learn how to create different presentation techniques, but at the end of the day, it's more people of our profession, architects, reading those drawings while they're commenting on our project. So I would suggest in this project of stacks, which represents a playful game of volumes and levels, what kind of architectural presentation technique do you feel is most efficient in representing such design ideas to the clients who has no understanding that we as professionals have? So what do you suggest for us that in such projects, clients to make them understand this kind of critical projects?
In this project is particular, we started imagining the space as volume. So it is very difficult for a client to understand how it's going to come. So it's very difficult for us to explain through 2D drawings, like you said, just a plan and section. So we were given a lot of 3-dimensional imagery so that they can able to understand the scale of it and volume we thought of. And after many discussion, we have done a manual model, which is a scaled down building of what we are going to expose in the site. I think that will give a proper scale understanding for the client and for us as well. And like I said before, proper communication is must, like between the clients. So to explain how it is going to come, so they have to be they have to be clear of what is going to come. So then only they will get confidence. So I think doing a manual model in a smaller scale of the building will be more helpful for any kind of project.
Yes, I do agree with you, Raghu, but in this modern generation where everyone is stuck in the flat screen 3D modeling softwares, we kind of forget how important physical modeling is in our practice and in the client communication program. So thank you for sharing your tips on that.
Thank you.
Ragul, I would like to pick up on what you said earlier when I asked you about how to communicate with client and where does the balance and compromise come in. And you mentioned how visualization sort of depicts and helps you address clients' worries and their concerns. And it helps you also bring your ideas forward and convince them on it. So picking up on stacks and seeing how if you look at, you've shown a realization, you've shown a visualization of stacks and an execution of stack. And if we pick up on something particular in terms of window finishing, there is a difference between what you visualized and how the actual site project came about. So what was what happened there, and what was that something the client intervened in, or was that a decision made on site because of material availability or durability? Could you perhaps give us an insight on the process of change that often happens between visualization and realization of a project and the factors that play a role in influencing it?
Yeah. So after many discussions with clients, so in terms of budget and maintenance for etc. So we have to, like I said before, we have to take a decision that might change from your initial realization. But what does matter is, as long as you don't compromise your core idea, like I said before. So the core idea of this project is keeping a volumetric play of volumes and like solids and voids. So we have kept that core idea as constant. So and for the budget constraint, we have to go for some changes in the window frames and other stuffs. But in that also we have matched with our design sense, like inside. Like our interior of the project is white, totally white. We want to follow the same monotony of that project, so we have picked the white color for the window frame, but our core idea of the project is constant. Like we should not give away from the core idea. So compromising is fine, but we should not get away from the core idea. Thank you.
Certainly. And I think with the materiality, even when it came to compromise, you perfectly thought of a way that would convince the client also, and also stick to your core values and your concept for the project, considering that, like you said, that the interior of the project was white. And seeing where you had to make a compromise because of budget, I think you've done it wonderfully by selecting something that still goes and ties in with the concept of the project that you initially thought of. So great work.
Thank you.
I think that brings us to the end of our question and answer session. And I would like to say my final words. Thank you, ClayWorks and VSLA, for giving me this opportunity, and Ragul and Naomi for sharing two distinctive yet very interesting perspectives of professional practice And finally, Josefa for being such a cooperative co-moderator. Thank you, everyone.
I must commend and congratulate our young designers for a wonderful presentation and wish them the very best in their future projects and practice. Thank you, Ragul and Naomi, and we wish you the best. I would also like to thank our enthusiastic and engaging mentors, Josefa and Arpa. Thank you so much for such an engaging conversation. The ClayWorks and DU team and our lovely audience. Have a good evening. Kavindu from our Design United team will share the upcoming series of events. Thanks.
Hello, I'd like to thank again architects Naomi and Ragul for your wonderful presentations today. And thanks to our moderators, Josefa and Arpa, for an interesting and thought-provoking conversation. We'd like to extend our gratitude to ClayWorks for supporting this webinar and all of our webinars. So far, Design United has successfully completed 18 installments of design conversations, and we have many more exciting speakers lined up, with designers across the spectrum joining us to share their thoughts. So do make sure you are back next Saturday at the same time. Next week, in our design conversation, we have origami artist and textile designer Aditya Anuj of Adigami, Bengaluru, presenting her work with landscape architect Hemali from Mumbai. In September, we are joined by inspirational architect Brinda Somaya and a daughter architect Nandini Sampath of Samaya Kalapa Associates Mumbai in the design practice. In the mentorship series that proceeds in progress on the 4th of September, we're joined by renowned architect Medhapa of Mindspace Architects Bengaluru. Do also fill in a feedback form that will pop up on your browser about today's webinar. Join us and stay inspired. And so follow us on our social media for our upcoming conversations. Until next time, thank you, stay safe and take care.